In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from Earth, humanity had begun to make its mark among the stars. On board the starship Aurora Dawn, Captain Daniel Carter stood alone on the observation deck. He stared out at the endless expanse of space, his eyes tracing the glowing colors of a nearby nebula. For years, humanity's journey into the cosmos had been peaceful. They explored new worlds, met alien civilizations, and built colonies. But now, something felt different. The calm that had once surrounded their missions was beginning to fade. Daniel sighed and turned as he heard footsteps behind him. It was Lieutenant Emily Ross, his second in command. Her expression was serious. She held a datapad in her hand, and Daniel could tell from the look on her face that the news wasn't good. "Captain," she said, stopping beside him, "we've received reports from Proxima Centauri IV. The colony there has gone silent." Daniel frowned. Proxima Centauri IV was one of humanity's oldest and most stable colonies. Communication blackouts weren't uncommon, but this time it felt different. "Any details?" he asked. Emily hesitated before answering. The last transmission was fragmented. There were mentions of ships, alien ships. She looked at him, her voice steady but worried. "It matches what we've been hearing from other sectors. The Krill are mobilizing." The Krill. Just saying their name made Daniel uneasy. They were an insectoid species known for their aggression and military strength. Until now, they had mostly kept to themselves, staying on the edges of human territory. But recent scans showed their fleets moving closer to human settlements. Everyone aboard the Aurora Dawn knew what that meant. War was coming. Daniel nodded slowly. "Call a meeting with the senior officers. We need to figure out our next move." As Emily left to carry out his orders, Daniel stayed where he was, staring out at the stars. He thought about the people back on Earth, living their lives without knowing how close they were to danger. This wasn't just about one colony anymore. It was about all of humanity. An hour later, the senior staff gathered in the briefing room. The mood was tense as Daniel addressed them. "We have reason to believe the Krill are responsible for the loss of contact with Proxima Centauri IV, he began. "If they're attacking our colonies, this isn't just an isolated incident. It's a declaration of war." There were murmurs around the table. Some officers exchanged worried glances, while others sat silently, processing the gravity of the situation. Daniel continued, "Our mission is clear. We go to Proxima Centauri IV, assess the damage, and find out what happened. If the Krill are involved, we'll respond accordingly." The crew prepared quickly, knowing time was critical. Within hours, the Aurora Dawn was en route to the colony. As the ship moved through the void of space, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change everything. Humanity had always dreamed of being part of the galactic community, but now they were about to discover the harsh realities of life among the stars. When they arrived at Proxima Centauri IV, the sight was devastating. The colony was in ruins, its buildings reduced to rubble. Fires still burned in some areas, sending plumes of smoke into the air. Daniel and Emily led a team down to the surface to investigate. Everywhere they looked, there were signs of violence. Craters marked the ground, and pieces of alien weapons lay scattered among the wreckage. There was no doubt. The Krill had been here. As they searched for survivors, Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't just an attack. It was a message. The Krill wanted humanity to know they were no longer welcome in this part of the galaxy. Daniel clenched his fists, anger and determination rising within him. He radioed back to the ship. "Tell Earth Command," he said firmly, "we are at war." The galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. The crew of the Aurora Dawn worked quickly to gather evidence from the ruins of Proxima Centauri IV. Captain Daniel Carter moved cautiously through the wreckage, his boots crunching over broken glass and twisted metal. The air was thick with smoke, and the smell of burning materials lingered everywhere. Lieutenant Emily Ross stayed close by his side, scanning the area with a handheld device. "These energy signatures match Krill weapons," she said, her voice low but steady. "They didn't just attack. They obliterated everything." Daniel nodded grimly. He knelt beside a piece of alien machinery embedded in the ground. It was jagged and blackened, clearly part of a weapon far more advanced than anything humanity had encountered before. As he examined it, his mind raced. The Krill weren't known for diplomacy or mercy. If they were attacking colonies, this wasn't just about territory. It was extermination. Suddenly, a sharp beep came from Emily's scanner. She looked up, alarmed. "Captain, we've got incoming ships, multiple contacts, closing fast." Without hesitation, Daniel signaled for the team to retreat. They sprinted back toward their shuttle, dodging falling debris as explosions erupted around them. The Krill had returned. Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, the crew scrambled to prepare for battle. The ship shuddered as the first wave of Krill fighters launched an assault. Their vessels were sleek and insect-like, darting through space with terrifying speed. On the bridge, Daniel took his seat and barked orders. "Shields up. Target their lead ships." The crew responded instantly, their training kicking in despite the chaos. The battle was intense. The Krill fighters swarmed the Aurora Dawn, firing relentless volleys of energy blasts. The human ship's shields flickered under the barrage, but the crew fought back with everything they had. Lieutenant Emily coordinated the defense systems, her fingers flying across the controls. "Redirect power to the forward cannons," she shouted. The ship's guns roared to life, sending bursts of plasma streaking into the void. One by one, Krill fighters exploded in flashes of light. Despite their efforts, the enemy kept coming. Outnumbered and outgunned, the situation seemed hopeless. That's when Sergeant Marcus Kane stepped forward. A grizzled veteran with years of combat experience, Marcus led a squad of Marines to the lower decks. There, they manned the ship's missile turrets, targeting the largest Krill vessels. "Hold the line." Marcus yelled over the comm system. His team unleashed a storm of missiles, taking out several enemy ships at once. The tide began to turn, but the cost was high. Alarms blared as sections of the Aurora Dawn sustained heavy damage. Smoke filled some corridors, and injured crew members were rushed to the medical bay. Through it all, Daniel remained focused. He knew that losing this fight would mean the end of humanity's hopes in the galaxy. "We can't let them win," he muttered under his breath. Finally, after what felt like hours, the Krill forces began to retreat. Their remaining ships broke formation and disappeared into the depths of space. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed what had just happened. They had survived, but barely. Emily turned to Daniel, her face pale. "We need to warn Earth. This isn't over." Daniel nodded. He stood and addressed the crew. "Good work, everyone. But this is only the beginning. The Krill won't stop until they've wiped us out, or we stop them first." He walked to the main console and activated the communication system. After a moment, he spoke directly to Earth Command. "This is Captain Daniel Carter of the Aurora Dawn. We are at war. Repeat, we are at war. Humanity must prepare for what's coming." As the message transmitted, Daniel stared out the viewport at the stars. The galaxy had always seemed vast and full of possibilities. Now it felt darker, more dangerous. The Krill had made their intentions clear, but so had humanity. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: the age of peaceful exploration was over. Back on Earth, the news from Proxima Centauri IV spread like wildfire. Images of the devastated colony filled screens in every home, office, and public space. People watched in shock as reporters described the attack, their voices trembling with fear and anger. President Laura Bennett stood before the United Nations Assembly, her expression grim but resolute. Cameras flashed as she addressed the world. "Today, humanity faces a new reality," she began, her voice firm and clear. "We have always dreamed of peace among the stars, but now we must face the truth. The Krill have declared war on us. They have attacked our people, destroyed our homes, and shown no mercy. But let me be clear, humanity will not back down." The room erupted in applause, though many faces in the crowd were pale with worry. Laura continued, outlining her plan to protect Earth and its colonies. She announced the creation of the Galactic Defense Initiative, or GDI, a coalition of all nations working together to defend humanity. Billions of dollars would be poured into building ships, weapons, and training soldiers. "This is not just about survival," Laura said, her tone fierce. "It's about proving that we belong in this galaxy. We will fight for our place among the stars." Meanwhile, far from Earth, Captain Daniel Carter received new orders. The Aurora Dawn was to rendezvous with Admiral William Hayes, the commander of the newly formed GDI fleet. As the ship traveled through space, Daniel thought about the challenges ahead. He knew that humanity's survival depended on how quickly they could adapt to this new threat. When the Aurora Dawn reached the massive orbital dockyards above Mars, Daniel was awestruck by the sight. Hundreds of ships were being built, repaired, and upgraded. Workers moved tirelessly, welding metal and installing advanced weaponry. Among the vessels being prepared was the Eclipse Vanguard, captained by Rachel Monroe. Rachel was known for her sharp mind and bold strategies, and Daniel had heard stories of her skill in battle. The two captains met aboard the Eclipse Vanguard to discuss their plans. Rachel greeted Daniel with a firm handshake. "Captain Carter," she said, her voice calm but confident. "I've read your report from Proxima Centauri IV. You've seen what the Krill are capable of. We need to be ready for anything." Daniel nodded. "Agreed. Their numbers are overwhelming, and their weapons are more advanced than ours. If we're going to win this war, we'll need to outthink them." Together, they studied star charts and battle simulations. Rachel suggested setting traps in key locations where the Krill might strike next. "We can't just wait for them to come to us," she explained. "We need to take the fight to them, hit them where it hurts." As they worked, Daniel couldn't help but notice the determination in Rachel's eyes. She reminded him of himself, someone who refused to give up, no matter how dire the situation. For hours, they pored over strategies, refining their plans until they were confident they had a chance against the Krill. Later that evening, Daniel stood on the observation deck of the Aurora Dawn, looking out at the bustling dockyards. The sight of so many ships gave him hope, but it also weighed heavily on his mind. Each vessel represented lives willing to risk everything for humanity's future. He thought about the crew under his command, the people back on Earth, and the countless others who depended on them to succeed. The galaxy had changed forever. Humanity was no longer an observer in the cosmic arena. It was a participant, ready to fight for its survival. Daniel took a deep breath and turned away from the viewport. There was still much to do, and time was running out. Whatever came next, one thing was certain: humanity would rise to meet the challenge. The first major battle of the war took place in the Epsilon Eridani system, a region of space known for its dense asteroid fields and scattered debris. Intelligence reports confirmed that the Krill had established a forward base there, using it as a staging ground for further attacks on human colonies. Captain Daniel Carter and Captain Rachel Monroe led the GDI fleet to confront them, knowing this fight would test humanity's strength like never before. As the ships approached the system, the tension aboard the Aurora Dawn was palpable. The crew moved quickly, checking weapon systems, shields, and navigation controls. Lieutenant Emily Ross stood at her station, her eyes glued to the sensors. "Captain," she said, her voice steady but urgent, "the Krill are waiting for us. Their fleet is larger than we expected." Daniel nodded, his jaw tight. He turned to address the crew. "This is it, everyone. We've trained for this moment. Stick to the plan, and remember why we're here. Humanity is counting on us." His words echoed through the ship, giving the crew a sense of purpose despite the danger ahead. The battle began with a barrage of energy blasts from both sides. The Krill ships swarmed like insects, darting between asteroids and firing relentlessly. The GDI fleet held its ground, returning fire with precision. Explosions lit up the void of space as ships on both sides were destroyed. The Aurora Dawn shuddered under the impact of enemy fire, but its shields held firm, for now. Rachel's Eclipse Vanguard played a crucial role in the fight. Her ship maneuvered skillfully through the chaos, targeting key Krill vessels and disrupting their formations. "Keep pushing," she ordered her crew. "We can't let them regroup." Her tactics were bold and unpredictable, keeping the enemy off balance. Despite their efforts, the Krill's numbers began to overwhelm the human forces. Ships in the GDI fleet sustained heavy damage, and communication channels filled with urgent calls for reinforcements. Daniel knew they needed to turn the tide quickly. He made a decision that would either save the battle or doom it. "Rachel, I'm going in," he said over the comm system. "I need you to cover me." "What are you planning?" Rachel asked, her tone sharp with concern. "I'm taking a team to infiltrate their command ship," Daniel replied. "If we can disable it, the rest of their fleet will fall apart." Rachel hesitated but finally agreed. "Do what you have to do. We'll hold them off as long as we can." With Sergeant Marcus Kane and a small squad of Marines, Daniel boarded a shuttle and launched toward the Krill command ship. The journey was perilous, with enemy fighters trying to intercept them at every turn. But thanks to Rachel's covering fire, they reached the massive vessel undetected. Inside, the air was thick with the hum of alien machinery. The corridors were dimly lit, and strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls. Daniel and his team moved cautiously, avoiding patrols of Krill soldiers. They'd reached the ship's core, where a massive reactor powered the entire vessel. Marcus set the explosives while Daniel kept watch, his heart pounding in his chest. "Done," Marcus whispered. "Let's move." As they raced back to the shuttle, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Krill knew they were there. Bullets whizzed past as the team fought their way out, relying on quick reflexes and teamwork to survive. Just as they reached the shuttle, the timer on the explosives ticked down to seconds. "Go! Go! Go!" Daniel shouted as the shuttle launched into space. Behind them, the Krill command ship erupted in a blinding explosion, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The loss of their flagship threw the Krill into disarray. Without leadership, their remaining ships scattered, retreating from the system. The GDI fleet cheered, but Daniel felt no joy. He looked at the wreckage around him, knowing the cost of victory. The galaxy had seen humanity's determination, but the war was far from over. After the victory at Epsilon Eridani, the crew of the Aurora Dawn returned to the orbital dockyards above Mars for repairs and resupply. The battle had been a success, but it came at a heavy price. Many ships in the GDI fleet were damaged, and countless lives had been lost. Captain Daniel Carter sat in his quarters, staring at the report on his desk. The words blurred together as fatigue weighed him down. He knew the war was far from over, but the question lingered: how long could humanity keep fighting? Lieutenant Emily Ross entered his cabin, holding a datapad. Her face was pale, her usual confidence replaced by unease. "Captain," she said softly, "we found something you need to see." She handed him the device. On the screen were intercepted transmissions from the Krill. At first glance, they seemed like standard military orders, but one detail stood out: a symbol embedded in the code. It wasn't Krill. It belonged to another alien race. Daniel frowned. "Who is this?" he asked, pointing to the symbol. Emily hesitated before answering. "It's the Valens. They're manipulating the Krill. These transmissions confirm it. The Valens are using them to attack us." The Valens, Daniel had heard of them before. They were an ancient and powerful species, known for their arrogance and dominance in the galaxy. To them, other races were either tools or obstacles. If the Valens were behind the Krill attacks, humanity's situation was even worse than anyone had imagined. Rachel Monroe joined them shortly after, her expression grim. "If we want to end this war," she said, "we can't just fight the Krill. We have to deal with the Valens directly. Daniel nodded, though the thought filled him with dread. The Valens were far more advanced than the Krill, and their technology was unmatched. Attacking them would be suicide unless humanity had a plan and allies. "We need help," Daniel said finally. "We can't do this alone." Rachel agreed. "There are other species in the galaxy who might join us. The Zorethians, for example. They've clashed with the Valens before. If we can convince them to fight alongside us, we might stand a chance." With Earth Command's approval, Daniel and Rachel set course for the Zorethian homeworld. The journey was tense, as both captains knew the stakes. Failure meant certain doom for humanity. When they arrived, they were greeted by Ambassador Lyra Solon, a tall, elegant figure with shimmering blue skin and piercing eyes. She led them to the council chamber, where the Zorethian leaders awaited. Daniel spoke first, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Ambassador, we come seeking your aid. The Valens have forced the Krill to attack us. If they succeed, no one will be safe, not even your people." Lyra listened carefully, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she turned to the council. "What Captain Carter says is true," she said. "The Valens have grown too powerful. If humanity falls, they will turn their attention to us next." The council debated fiercely, some arguing that helping humanity would provoke the Valens, while others believed it was the only way to stop them. Finally, the head counselor rose to speak. "We will join you," he declared. "But know this: the Valens will not surrender easily. Prepare yourselves for the greatest challenge of your lives." As Daniel and Rachel left the chamber, relief washed over them. Humanity wasn't alone anymore, but the road ahead was still dark and uncertain. The Valens wouldn't go down without a fight, and the cost of defeating them would be immense. Still, Daniel felt a flicker of hope. Together, they might just have a chance to bring peace to the galaxy, or die trying. With the Zorethians now allies, Captain Daniel Carter and Captain Rachel Monroe worked tirelessly to prepare for the next phase of the war. The combined fleet, human ships, Zorethian vessels, and smaller contingents from other alien species, gathered near the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy. This was where the Valens had built their stronghold, a massive fortress surrounded by swirling energy fields and guarded by countless warships. It was a daunting sight, but the coalition was determined to face it head-on. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Aurora Dawn, studying the star charts and battle plans spread across the main console. Lieutenant Emily Ross stood beside him, her eyes scanning the data. "The Valens know we're coming," she said quietly. "They'll be ready." "I know," Daniel replied, his voice firm. "But we have the element of surprise on our side. They won't expect us to attack directly." He turned to Rachel, who was coordinating with the Zorethian commanders via holographic communication. "How's the plan shaping up?" Rachel glanced at him, her expression focused. "The Zorethians are positioning their ships to create a distraction. If they can draw the Valen fleet away from the fortress, we'll have a clear path to strike." Daniel nodded. "Good. Once we disable their central command hub, the rest of their forces will fall apart. But getting there won't be easy." Hours later, the coalition fleet moved into position. The tension aboard the Aurora Dawn was thick as the crew prepared for what would likely be the most dangerous mission of their lives. Sergeant Marcus Kane led a small strike team assigned to infiltrate the Valen fortress. "Stay sharp," he told his squad as they checked their weapons one last time. "We go in fast, hit the target, and get out alive." As the battle began, the Zorethian ships launched their assault, drawing the attention of the Valen fleet. Explosions lit up the void of space as the two sides clashed. The distraction worked. Most of the Valen ships were pulled away from the fortress, leaving it vulnerable. Daniel gave the signal, and the Aurora Dawn, along with a handful of other ships, raced toward the stronghold. The journey through the energy fields was treacherous. The ships shuddered as they passed through waves of electromagnetic interference, but the pilots held steady. Once inside, the strike team boarded a shuttle and headed for the fortress. The Valens immediately detected them, sending fighters to intercept. Rachel's Eclipse Vanguard provided cover fire, taking out enemy ships with precision. When the shuttle docked, Daniel, Marcus, and the team disembarked into the fortress. The interior was a maze of glowing corridors and humming machinery. Valen soldiers patrolled the halls, their sleek armor reflecting the dim light. The team moved quickly, avoiding detection as much as possible. At one point, they were forced to take cover as a patrol passed nearby. Marcus signaled for silence, and the group held their breath until the danger passed. Finally, they'd reached the command hub, a massive chamber filled with towering consoles and pulsating energy cores. Marcus set the explosives while Daniel kept watch, his weapon trained on the entrance. "Hurry," he whispered. "We don't have much time." "I'm almost done," Marcus replied, his hands working quickly. Just as he finished, alarms blared throughout the fortress. The Valens knew they were there. "Let's move," Daniel shouted. The team sprinted back toward the shuttle, exchanging fire with Valen soldiers along the way. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, and the air was thick with smoke. When they finally reached the shuttle, Marcus activated the explosives remotely. Behind them, the fortress shook violently as explosions tore through its core. As the shuttle launched into space, the fortress collapsed in a brilliant burst of light. The remaining Valen ships scattered, leaderless, and disorganized. The battle was won, but Daniel knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy was still full of challenges. For now, though, the Coalition celebrated their hard-fought victory. Together, they had taken a stand against tyranny and shown the galaxy that humanity was here to stay. The destruction of the Valen fortress sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Without their central command, the Valen forces crumbled, their ships retreating into the far reaches of space. The Krill, realizing their puppet masters had fallen, quickly surrendered to the Coalition fleet. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the war was over. Humanity and its allies had won. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the Aurora Dawn, watching as the last remnants of the Valen fleet disappeared into the void. His heart was heavy with the weight of all they had lost, but there was also a sense of relief. Lieutenant Emily Ross approached him, her face calm but tired. "It's done," she said softly. "We did it." Daniel nodded, though his mind was still racing. "Yes, we did. But at what cost?" He gestured to the viewport, where the wreckage of countless ships floated silently in space. Each one represented lives lost, human, Zorethian, and others who had joined the fight. The victory felt hollow without them. Rachel Monroe entered the bridge moments later, her expression thoughtful. "Earth Command has requested our return," she said. "They want to hold a ceremony to honor those who fought, and to discuss what comes next." Daniel sighed. "What comes next is rebuilding. This war may be over, but the galaxy isn't safe yet. There are still threats out there, and humanity needs to be ready." The journey back to Earth was quiet, the crew reflecting on everything they had been through. When the Aurora Dawn finally docked at the orbital station above Earth, the reception was overwhelming. Thousands of people gathered to welcome the returning heroes, their cheers echoing through the halls. President Laura Bennett greeted Daniel and Rachel personally, thanking them for their bravery and leadership. Later that evening, the United Nations Assembly held a special session to honor the Coalition's efforts. Representatives from Earth, the Zorethians, and other allied species filled the chamber. President Bennett addressed the crowd, her voice filled with emotion. "Today, we celebrate not just a victory, but a new beginning," she said. "Humanity has proven itself worthy of its place among the stars. We have shown that we can stand alongside others, fight for justice, and build a better future for everyone." Daniel listened from the front row, his thoughts drifting to the sacrifices made along the way. Marcus Kane, who had risked everything to plant the explosives in the Valen fortress, was seated nearby, his usual gruff demeanor softened by exhaustion. Emily sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the stage. Even Rachel, usually so composed, looked moved by the president's words. After the ceremony, Daniel found himself standing on a balcony overlooking Earth. The planet glowed softly in the darkness, its oceans shimmering under the light of the moon. It was a reminder of why they had fought so hard to protect this fragile world and ensure its survival. Rachel joined him a few minutes later. "You okay?" she asked, leaning against the railing. "I will be," Daniel replied. "It's strange, though. After everything we've been through, it feels like the real work is just starting." Rachel smiled faintly. "That's because it is. The galaxy is still a dangerous place. But now, we're not alone. We've built alliances, earned respect. That changes everything." Daniel nodded, looking out at the stars. "You're right. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to feel hope. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged stronger. The road ahead would be difficult, but together, with allies old and new, they could face whatever came next. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was ready to take its place among the stars. In the weeks following the war, life began to change for humanity. The victory over the Valens and the Krill had proven that Earth was no longer a minor player in the galaxy. News of the Coalition's triumph spread across star systems, drawing attention from species both friendly and hostile. Humanity had earned respect, but it also knew that peace would not last forever. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the observation deck of the Aurora Dawn, gazing at the stars as he thought about the future. The ship was docked at an orbital station above Earth, undergoing repairs and upgrades. The scars of battle were slowly being erased, but the memories remained fresh in everyone's minds. Lieutenant Emily Ross joined Daniel, holding a cup of coffee in her hands. "It's strange, isn't it?" she said, breaking the silence. "After everything we've been through, things almost feel normal." Daniel smiled faintly. "Normal is good, for now, but we can't let ourselves get too comfortable. The galaxy is still full of dangers." Emily nodded. She glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think we'll ever really have peace, or is this just how it is, always fighting, always looking over our shoulder?" "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "But I do know one thing. We're stronger than we were before. We've built alliances, learned how to fight together. That gives us a chance." Down on Earth, cities buzzed with activity as people celebrated the end of the war. Parades filled the streets, and monuments were erected to honor those who had given their lives. President Laura Bennett addressed the nation once more, emphasizing the importance of unity. "This victory belongs to all of us," she said during a televised speech. "But it also reminds us of our responsibility to protect what we've built and to work toward a better future." The Galactic Defense Initiative, GDI, continued to grow, its ranks swelling with volunteers eager to defend humanity. Scientists worked tirelessly to develop new technologies, many inspired by the advanced designs of their alien allies. Earth Command established embassies on other worlds, fostering relationships with species like the Zorethians and others who had fought alongside them. Rachel Monroe visited Earth briefly before returning to her duties aboard the Eclipse Vanguard. She met with Daniel one last time before departing. "We did good work," she said, her tone light but sincere. "But there's still so much to do. Keep pushing forward, Daniel. The galaxy needs leaders like you." Daniel shook her hand firmly. "You too, Rachel. Stay safe out there." As the months passed, the Aurora Dawn prepared for a new mission. This time, it wasn't about war, it was about exploration. Earth Command had tasked Daniel and his crew with charting unexplored regions of the galaxy, seeking out potential threats and opportunities for cooperation. It was a chance to move forward, to focus on discovery rather than destruction. On the day of departure, the crew gathered on the bridge, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Daniel addressed them, his voice steady and confident. "This isn't just another mission. It's a step into the unknown. We've proven that humanity belongs among the stars. Now, let's show the galaxy what we're capable of. The engines roared to life as the ship launched into space. Through the viewport, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely. Daniel felt a sense of purpose settle over him. The war had tested humanity's strength, resolve, and courage, and they had risen to the challenge. The road ahead would be unpredictable, but that was the nature of exploration. For the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to dream. He imagined a future where humanity thrived among the stars, working alongside other species to build a brighter tomorrow. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but humanity was ready to embrace them. As the Aurora Dawn sailed deeper into the cosmos, Daniel looked out at the endless expanse of stars. They were no longer strangers to this place. They were part of it, and nothing could take that away.